Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Batra 145b, top of the page, and it was just talking about the five things. The Brisa said five statements that were said with regard to gifts of groomsmen, and the last two are on the top here. The Ein Ashvias Mishamta, Ein Bechor Notel Ba Pishnayim. Sabbatical year does not abrogate them, and the firstborn does not take a double portion of them. Nig Beis Beis Din Mai Taimo. כמיל ודמיה ואין בה משום ריביס דלא ידעת דרך יהבלה בין השביעס משמתה דלא יקרינן בלא yigois. The Brisa states that gifts of groomsmen they are collectible in court. What is the reason for this? It is that they are considered similar to a loan. The Brisa states, and they are not subject to the prohibition of interest. The reason is that it was not with that in mind that he gave him a larger gift. Rather, he did so on account of his joy at his friend's wedding. The Brita states, and the sabbatical year does not abrogate them. The reason is that one cannot read the verse concerning the abrogation of debts during the occurrence of the sabbatical year. He shall not exact it of his neighbor and his brother, because the Lord's release has been proclaimed, Deuteronomy 15:2. With regard to gifts of groomsmen, since one cannot choose to exact the gifts until the time of one's own wedding, they are not addressed by this verse. The Brita states, and the firstborn does not take a double portion from them. The reason is that they constitute potential inheritance, and the firstborn does not take in inheritance the property due to the deceased as he does the property the deceased possessed. Amar Rav Kahana klala deshosh vinuso hali bemaso iboile lemeso shma kol tavaro I boile le meso lo ishama kol tavala I boile le adia ta roimes isle shalom shalom. Rav Kahana said the principle with regard to the reciprocation of the gifts of groomsmen is if the recipient was in town when his groomsmen wed, he should have come to the wedding. And even if he did not come, he is obligated to send the gifts of groomsmen. If he was not in town, but he was nearby, and he heard the sound of the drum announcing the wedding, he should have come. If he was far away, and he did not hear the sound of the drum, the betrothed man should have informed him. If he did not inform him, the recipient has a grievance against the betrothed man because he did not inform him about the wedding, but he still repays the gift of groomsmen. V'ad kama amar Abaye nagu b'nei ganana ad zuza aise b'chape achali b'charase ad arba'a mishalem palga mikan be'elach inish kechashivute. In this case, since he did not partake of the wedding feast, he is entitled to deduct a sum from the reciprocal gift. The Gemara asks, and up to how much can he deduct? Abaye said the members of a wedding feast were accustomed to deduct according to the following principle. If the gift of groomsmen and the reciprocal giver received was up to a dinar, he now pays nothing, because what a person brings in his hand, he consumes in his stomach. If the gift of groomsmen was up to 4 dinars, he now pays half. From that sum onward, each person deducts according to his prominence, meaning in accordance with the outlay that would have been required to honor the reciprocal giver properly had he participated in the wedding feast. Tanu Rabbanan asaimo bepumbe ubikesh la'asot imo betzina yachol meloi bepumbe seimach kederech she'asita imi asaimo bebetula ubikesh la'asot imo ba'almana yachol melo The sages taught in a Braita to Sefta 10:9. If one served as a groomsman for his friend at a public wedding, and when the groomsman himself wed, he requested that his friend reciprocate by serving as a groomsman for him at a private wedding, the friend can say to him, I am willing to reciprocate and serve as a groomsman for you, only at a public wedding, where the rejoicing is greater, in the manner you served as a groomsman for me. If one served as a groomsman for his friend, when he married a virgin, and he requested that his friend reciprocate by serving as a groomsman for him, when he marries a widow, the friend can say to him, I shall serve as a groomsman for you only when you marry a virgin, in the manner you served as a groomsman for me. Asa imo b'shniya bikesh la'asos imo b'rishono yochel amaloi lecheshetiso isha acheres esa imach asa imo ba'achas וביקש לעשות עמוי בשתיים, יכול לומר לו באחס אעשה עמך כדרך שעשיסו עמי. If one served as a groomsman for his friend, when he married a second wife, and he requested that his friend reciprocate by serving as a groomsman for him when he marries a first wife, the friend can say to him, when you marry another woman, I will serve as a groomsman for you. If one served as a groomsman for his friend when he married one woman, and he requested that his friend reciprocate by serving as a groomsman for him when he marries two women, a friend can say to him, I will serve as a groomsman for you when you marry one woman in the manner that you served as a groomsman for me. Tanu Ramanan, the sages taught in a braiso. Atir nechasin, atir pumbe. Zehu bal agadois. Atir seloim, atir tekoa. Zehu bal pilpul. Asir mashach atir kamas. Zehu bal shemuis. Hakol tzichin lemorechatoya Talmud. The sages taught in Brisa there are different types of Torah scholars. There's a scholar who is wealthy in figurative property and wealthy in public renown. I'm not sure what figurative means, but anyways, let's just say wealthy in property and wealthy in public renown. This is the master of homiletics. There is a scholar who is wealthy in coins and wealthy in houses. This is the master of dialectics. There is one who is wealthy in oil and wealthy in hidden stores. This is a master of halachic traditions. Everyone is dependent on the owner of wheat. This is the master of Talmud who understands the reasons behind the rulings and traditions. Rabbi Zeir says that Rav says, what is the meaning of that which is written in Proverbs 15:15? Verse 8, all the days of the poor are terrible, and for the good-hearted it is always a feast. Proverbs 15:15, all the days of the poor are terrible, kol yemei Oni roim. Yeah, all the days of a poor are terrible. Right? All the days of the poor are terrible. This is referring to the master of Talmud, who is wearied by the difficulty of his Talmud study. And for the good-hearted, it is always a feast. This is referring to the master of Mishnah, who recites the Mishnayot by rote and is not wearied thereby. Rava Omar Ibecho, V'hainu Doma Rav Mishal Shemishmei Rava, Mai Dichsiv, Masya Avonim Yatzev Bahem, Bokia Eitim Yisochin Bam, Masya Avonim Yatzev Bahen, Elu Bali Mishnah. Rava says the opposite is true. And this is consistent with that which Rav Meshach just says. In the name of Rava, what is the meaning of that which is written? He who quarries stones shall be hurt by them, and he that chops wood shall be warmed thereby. This is in Ecclesiastes 10:9. Koheles 10:9. He who quarries stones shall be hurt by them. These are masters of the Mishnah. They exert themselves to memorize the Mishnayos, but since one cannot reach practical conclusions from the Mishnah, they are comparable to one who carries a heavy load without benefiting from them. He that chops wood shall be warmed thereby. These are the masters of the Talmud who attain the benefit of their exertions in the form of practical conclusions. Rabbi Chanina Omar, Kol Yemei Ani Roim Ze Sheyesh Lo Ish Ra V'Toiv Leiv Mishe Tamid Ze Sheyesh Lo Ish Toiva. Rabbi Yanai Omar, Kol Yemei Ani Roim Ze Istinis V'Toiv Leiv Mishe Tamid Ze Shedaita Yofe. The Gemara cites other interpretations of this verse. Rabbi Chanina says, all the days of the poor are terrible. This is referring to one who has a wicked wife. And for the good-hearted, it is always a feast. This is referring to one who has a good wife. Rabbi Yanai says, all the days of the poor are terrible. This is referring to one who is delicate, is an istinus, he's very finicky, and overly sensitive because he constantly encounters unpleasant situations. And for the good-hearted, it is always a feast. This is referring to one who is relaxed and not particular with regard to his food or his surroundings. Rabbi Yochanan Omar, Kol Yemei Ani Roim Ze Rachaman V'Tov Lemishte Tomid Zachzori. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi Omar, Kol Yemei Ani Roim Ze Shedaita Ketzora V'Tov Lev Yemei Mishe Tomid Ze Shedaita Rachava. Rabbi Yochanan says that all the days of the poor are terrible. This is referring to an empathetic person because he's constantly affected by the suffering in the world. And for the good-hearted, it is always a feast. This is referring to a cruel person who is not pained by the suffering of others. It's like the Swedish proverb, blessed is he who has a hardened heart. I mean, it's the same, along the same lines as that, which is not particularly, ideal, but apparently that's what he's saying here. And Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, all the days of the poor are terrible. This is referring to a person of impatient disposition. And for the good-hearted is always a feast. This is referring to a person of patient disposition. For obvious reasons.